chorus in my skull. Eleanor Vance clutched the chipped teacup, its floral pattern blurring at the edges of her vision. The silence in her tiny apartment was deafening, broken only by the insistent tick-tock of the grandfather clock that seemed to mock her solitude. It wasn't the silence itself that frightened her. It was the absence of her own thoughts. It had started subtly, a stray thought, not quite her own, flickering in the back of her mind. A fleeting image of a field of dandelions turning to dust in the wind. Then, a single, whispered word, "Run." Eleanor brushed it off, attributing it to stress, but the whispers returned, growing bolder with each passing day. The whispers were soon joined by a cacophony, a chorus of disembodied voices, each with its own distinct personality, flooded her mind. There was the frantic one, screaming of imminent danger. The cynical one, dripping with sarcasm at her every thought. The melancholic one, drowning everything in a tide of despair. Eleanor, a once vibrant artist, became a prisoner in her own mind. Her paintings, once bursting with life, grew dull and disturbing, echoing the disarray in her head. Conversations became a struggle, her own voice lost amidst the chaotic symphony. Sleep brought no respite, filled with nightmares fueled by the parasitic thoughts. Desperate for answers, Eleanor sought help from doctors. One after another, they dismissed it as a symptom of anxiety or a manifestation of grief, referencing a forgotten childhood trauma. But Eleanor knew better. These weren't her own anxieties. They were fragments of someone else's life, someone else's terror. Fueled by desperation, she delved into fringe theories and occult practices. A dusty bookstore in a forgotten corner of the city led her to a wizened old woman with eyes that held the wisdom of ages. The woman, introducing herself as Esme, listened patiently to Eleanor's tale. "You are not possessed," Esme declared, her voice raspy with age, "but infested, a conduit, unwillingly harboring the fragmented thoughts of a dying entity." The explanation, while chilling, offered a glimmer of hope. Esme outlined a ritual, a complex web of symbols and incantations aimed at severing the unwanted connection. The ingredients were bizarre: a raven feather, moonlight captured in a vial, and a sacrifice, an offering of the most personal belonging. Eleanor, clinging to the promise of reclaiming her mind, gathered the items. On a night of full moon, huddled within a circle of salt and candles, she performed the ritual as Esme instructed. The air crackled with a strange energy. The disembodied voices erupted in a crescendo of panic, a final desperate plea. Then silence, an unsettling, hollow quiet that left Eleanor disoriented. Had it worked? Hope battled against a rising sense of dread. The next few days were eerily calm. The peace was unsettling, a stark contrast to the constant mental chatter. Yet, a new terror gnawed at Eleanor. She felt empty. The once annoying voices were strangely comforting compared to the deafening void within. One evening, as she sat on her creaky floorboard, a single image flickered in her mind, clear as day. A young woman, no older than her, with fiery red hair, standing on the precipice of a cliff, fear etched on her face. It was followed by a name, a single word that echoed in the emptiness of her skull. Amelia. The knowledge dawned on her with horrifying clarity. She hadn't severed the connection. She had absorbed it. The parasitic thoughts were gone, replaced by Amelia's fragmented memories. A desperate search led Eleanor to an abandoned coastal town. The faded glory of grand houses whispered of a bygone era. A weathered sign pointed towards a long-forgotten cliff path. As Eleanor reached the precipice, the fragmented memories coalesced into a horrifying picture. Amelia, ostracized and ridiculed, had chosen this path to end her life. Standing there, on the edge, Eleanor felt Amelia's terror, her crippling despair. But then, a new thought, sharp and clear, cut through the overwhelming emotions. "Don't let me win." It was Amelia, a faint echo of her defiant spirit. Tears welled up in Eleanor's eyes. She wouldn't let Amelia's story define her. Taking a deep breath, she turned away from the edge, the wind whipping at her hair. The parasitic thoughts were gone, but Amelia's fragmented memories remained. It was a burden, a constant reminder of the tragedy, but also a responsibility. Eleanor returned to the city, a renewed purpose burning in her eyes. She began to paint again, not with vibrant colors, but with muted tones and haunting imagery depicting the loneliness that drove Amelia to the edge. Her artwork became a sensation, a poignant portrayal of unspoken pain that resonated with viewers. Fame, however, brought little comfort. The fragmented memories remained, a constant murmur in the back of her mind. At times, they were comforting, a connection to another soul. However, there were moments, particularly during sleep, when the whispers evolved into something more insidious. One night, a fragmented memory, more vivid than ever before, flooded Eleanor's mind. It was Amelia, standing at the edge of the cliff again. But this time, she wasn't alone. A dark figure stood beside her, a figure shrouded in mist. There was a struggle, a flash of something metallic, and then nothing. Eleanor woke with a gasp, sweat clinging to her skin. The image of the dark figure sent shivers down her spine. Had it been there before? Was it just a manifestation of her anxiety, or something more? The next day, she returned to the coastal town, the memory gnawing at her. She found the local historian, a man with a wealth of knowledge about the town's forgotten past. Hesitantly, she described the fragmented memory, the dark figure at the cliff's edge. The historian's face paled. He confirmed a chilling fact. Amelia's case had been ruled a suicide, but there were rumors, whispers of a struggle, of a missing necklace, a silver locket she always wore. He recounted stories passed down through generations, tales of a cult residing near the cliffs, their leader a shadowy figure rumored to influence the vulnerable. The image of Amelia's locket, glinting in the memory, sent a jolt of fear through Eleanor. Back in her apartment, she frantically searched the box containing Amelia's belongings, gifted by Esme after the ritual. The box was empty, devoid of the necklace. The whispers in her head returned, stronger this time. They weren't Amelia's. They were cold, calculating, filled with a chilling sense of triumph. They spoke of a plan, of a ritual incomplete, of a vessel finally prepared. The final words sent a wave of terror crashing over her. "Now, you join us." With a terrified gasp, Eleanor reached for her phone. It was dead. The power was out, plunging her apartment into darkness. Panic clawed at her throat. She stumbled to the window, the full moon casting an eerie glow on the city below. A figure emerged from the shadows across the street, shrouded in the same mist as the one from her memory. It was moving towards her apartment building, its head tilted upwards, eyes locked on her window. Eleanor felt a primal surge of fear, but behind it, a flicker of defiance. Amelia's voice, faint but resolute, echoed in her mind. "Don't let me win." She grabbed a paintbrush, its tip glinting menacingly in the moonlight. It wasn't a weapon, but it was all she had. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Eleanor smeared crimson paint across the window. A desperate message, a bloody sigil against the encroaching darkness. As the figure reached the building, a deafening screech erupted from the street below. A car, swerving out of control, slammed into a lamppost, casting a shower of sparks. The figure froze, its head turning towards the commotion. The silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with anticipation. Then, with a final, chilling whisper that sent shivers down her spine, the figure melted back into the shadows, leaving Eleanor bathed in the eerie moonlight and the echoes of a scream, unsure if she had just saved herself or become the next vessel for the darkness that lurked beyond the veil.